Fuzz is a really fun effect. I've always had a soft spot for fuzz, but more specifically, Octave Fuzz. I really enjoy any fuzz pedal with an octave up function, and I'm still continually on the quest to find my perfect Octave Fuzz. One company who I really love the fuzz products from are Beetronics. They always do some cool, wacky and wonderful stuff with fuzz and with octaves, and in this video we're going to look at the latest product in that catalogue, which is the Vezzpa. This is a fuzz and octave up in a pedal. It's a really fun unit. But is this going to be my new favourite fuzz pedal with an octave up? Let's find out. So my fascination with the Octave Fuzz comes from being a fan of players like Hendrix. I love that classic vintage sort of fuzz-facey tone with that high Octavia on top. That's a tone that I'm always kind of chasing, and I've found many different pedals that get me close. Beetronics are actually the company that got me closest to my dream tone with their other Octave Fuzz, the Octave, which is a great pedal, and I did a video on that a few months back, so go check that one out if you want to hear that one. But today we're going to look at the Vezzpa. Now the Vezzpa is a little bit of a different beast. So first of all, it's pretty small. It's very simple. And this is actually more of an op-amp fuzz, so it's a little bit harsher. This actually does a little bit more of that gated and spluttery thing. So for anyone who loves those big, fat, warm, vintage style fuzzes, this might not be the right tonal palette, but in this video I'm going to stack it with some drive pedals as well, just to see what different results we can get, because obviously a fuzz on its own is one thing, but when you start pairing it with other pedals, it completely transforms how the pedal sounds and reacts. If you've already checked out any pictures or videos of the Vezzpa, you may notice that the one I'm holding actually looks slightly different. Now usually the Vezzpa is black, but this one I'm holding is green. This is actually a limited edition run. There's only 30 of these available. This is just one of those 30. This has very kindly been provided to me by my friends at Beetronics and Face Distribution. So I'm not getting paid for this video, but they did give me this pedal for the purpose of making the video. So this will sound exactly like the regular Vezzpa, but as you can see, it's just aesthetically different. It's just got this nice green brushed case with the red, yellow and gold finishes on there. The pedal itself is very simple. There's only two controls. We've got a volume control, which controls the output volume of the pedal, and the sustain control. This is kind of like your gain. So the higher you push the sustain, the more gain you have. One thing this pedal does have, which is pretty cool, is a very unique switching system. So on top of the pedal, we have a switch. Now there are two different LED lights here. We've got Fuzz Mode and Stinger Mode. So Fuzz Mode is obviously just the regular fuzz circuit, and Stinger Mode is the octave up mode. Now there's no separate sort of toggle switch for this. It's all done via the foot switch. This took me a little while to get used to. There are some different commands which can take you a little bit of time to get your head around, and it can be a little complicated at first, but once you kind of remember all the commands, it's pretty straightforward. So when you first plug the pedal in, it will just go to whichever mode you've left it on. When you press this foot switch once, it will enable that mode. So let's say I've left this on fuzz mode. When I press that button, fuzz mode will engage, so I'll just get the fuzz tone. If I want to engage the upper octave, I need to press this twice. So 2 swift taps will engage the upper octave. The other cool thing this foot switch does is it doubles as a momentary switch. So if the pedal is switched off and I hold the switch, it will engage whichever one of the modes is on just for the duration that I'm holding the switch, and as soon as I release the switch, it'll go back to my regular sound. The same is also true, let's say I'm in fuzz mode and the pedal is switched on. If I once again hold the momentary switch, it will temporarily engage the other mode, and then when I release that, it will go back to the mode that was engaged previously. So there are a couple of different commands there that can take a little while to get used to, and it did take me a few attempts just to get my head around the cycle of those. But it's very cool because you can sort of toggle between the 2 modes and use it as a momentary fuzz. So if you just want to add fuzz to a single note, perhaps you want to sustain something at the end of a solo, you can just hold that down and sustain away. So with this pedal being so simple, there's not really a lot else to say about it. 2 controls, a foot switch with a bunch of different commands, an in and an out on the side, and it runs off a standard 9-volt DC. It's super lightweight, it's not going to take up a bunch of space in your pedal board. So let's plug it in and hear how it sounds. The guitar I'm using for this video is my Vola Oz ROA. This is a very, very versatile guitar, humbucker and 2 singles, so we can get those kind of classic stratty tones, but also some fatness from the bridge humbucker. The amp I'm plugged into is the Cool Amplification Blue Sky, which is a completely clean amp that I use a lot for pedal demos. That is running via the 2-note Captor X, which is running an IR of a Bassman style cab. The reverb you're hearing is coming from the Surfy Industries Surfy Bear Classic, which is sat on top of the amp behind me over there. And I'm also going to be using some drive later on in the video from the Wampler Bell. But at first, we're just going to start off with the Vezzpa into the amp completely clean. So I've got the Vezzpa on the table in front of me. Now, the big problem you're going to have in this video is you can't actually see the controls because usually the controls are on top of the pedal. The knobs are actually on the back of this pedal and they're finished in this gold sort of color, which actually means you can't really see the indentation which shows you where this is set. So in this video, I'm just going to start each section with the sustain control all the way down at 0. And then as the section goes, every time you see me adjust it, I'm just pushing it up more and more until we end up at maximum. The volume control I've got set just over halfway. I'm just going to leave that because that is just a volume control. The amp, as I said, is set completely clean and it sounds like this. So if we set the sustain control all the way to 0, and then we engage the Vezzpa, you'll notice this light here is already on. This is my fuzz mode. So if I turn the pedal on, this red LED here comes on, and if I double tap this control, this green light comes on. So that is the different modes engaged. You'll notice I'm having a bit of difficulty switching back. Getting the timings of the switching can be quite tricky, so perhaps not something I would do on the fly if I was gigging, maybe just sort of a set and forget kind of thing. So like I said, I've got the sustain all the way down at 0 and the volume is sort of just above halfway. So I'm going to play a bit on the fuzz circuit and just gradually increase that sustain for you. Start off with some single coil tones using the neck single coil, and I'll just change between that and the bridge humbucker as well. So in the fuzz mode, it's kind of glitchy. It does that sort of spluttery thing, especially in the really low settings. If you've got that sustain sort of just above 0, it's almost pretty hard to use. Personally, for me, that's not really a tone I would get too much use out of. Pretty cool if you like those glitchy fuzz things though. Now overall, that's not my favorite Beetronics fuzz sound. I definitely think I still prefer the fuzz on the Octave, but that's still pretty cool. It definitely, in the higher settings, you get a bit more of a fatter fuzz. It's still a little bit too glitchy for my taste. So now I'm going to go to the stinger mode. So same thing again. The sustain is on 0, and I'm just going to play a bit, flip between the bridge, humbucker, and the neck single coil, and increase the sustain range. So now I've enabled that octave up function. Alright, so now this is where the pedal starts to come alive in my opinion. The stinger mode is much more usable into a clean amp than the fuzz mode. I definitely love that octave up thing, especially with the sustain control maybe like 3/4 of the way up. That seems to work pretty well. Now the cool thing is you can use the momentary switch as well. So if I'm just playing with fuzz, I can just hold this temporarily and it will flip to the stinger mode, and when I release that it will go off again. So now I'm going to stack this with another drive pedal. I'm using the Wampler Bell, which sounds like this. I'm going to be using the Vezzpa in front of that, so I'm going to start with the fuzz mode again. Once again, got the sustain all the way to 0, so I'm just going to play and increase that sustain control. So even when you push that in front of another drive pedal, it's still super gated. I wish there was a way to adjust the gate slightly, because for me, again, that's not really a tone that I particularly love in my own sort of tonal palette. So I'm moving over now to the stinger side. I think I've got much higher hopes for this. I think for me, this is definitely going to be used more as an octave up thing rather than a regular fuzz pedal, because yeah, that gated thing doesn't really cut it for me. If there was a way to sort of dial back the sensitivity on that gate, that would be pretty cool. Perhaps that's something that Beetronics are going to be doing in future, I don't know. But for now, let's check it out into the Wampler Bell with the stinger mode. So again, I'm just going to play and increase that control. So that is currently set all the way to 0. So that's definitely more my kind of vibe with the octave up on. It's still, if I'm completely honest, a little bit too glitchy for my taste. There's still some of that gated thing that I wish I could just trim out with a control, but it does sound really cool, and I definitely think pushing that into another drive pedal makes that octave really kind of scream. It's great for sustaining things. I was just kind of playing around with holding a note there with the gain on full, and it just really almost gets into like EBO or synthy kind of territory. That's really fun. That could be a very cool tool to go on the pedal board. Now, the only thing I haven't talked about is the momentary switch. So I mentioned that even with the pedal in the off position, you can toggle the effect on and off momentary. So I've shown you how the momentary switch works between the two sides, but if you just want to add octave up fuzz to a single note in a phrase, that's where it could be used as that kind of sustainer thing. If you were using this through a loud cranked amp, you could just hold that with the octave up and it would sort of sustain the note for you. You could also do the same with the fuzz side. So again, if the pedal's off, you can just flip it on and off that way. So there you go, there is the Beetronics Vezzpa. That is a really cool pedal. I love the octave up sounds there. Is this my favorite octave fuzz? I don't think so. I still think I'm leaning towards the Beetronics Octave. That one's still winning for me slightly because it's just got a bit more of that kind of vintage vibe. But if you're someone who likes that real kind of modern glitchy fuzz thing, the Vezzpa is really cool because those gated fuzz sounds are really useful if you like that kind of sound. It's not the sort of thing I use too much in my own playing, but I will definitely be using this for its octave up functions because I really like the way it kind of screams when you play there. So yeah, I'm really into the octave up functions of the Vezzpa. I'm going to have a lot of fun with this one. What do you guys think? Let me know down below in the comments what you think of the tones of the Beetronics Vezzpa. And while you're down there leaving a comment, don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys very soon. Thanks so much for watching.